So having that perfect mix of battle-worn plus someone just new, a graduate, someone's been in the industry for maybe a year or so, they'll think about things that you can't think of because your brain is a bit locked in a box. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Metacast Roundtable by Naavik. Manu's already making me laugh and we haven't even started recording. Well, we kind of have now. So I'm joined by Abhimanyu Kumar today, co-founder at Naavik, Matt Dion, senior product manager at EA, and Anil Das-Gupta, co-founder and CPO at First Light Games. Manu said that he's nice Manu today, so I don't really know what it means to not be nice Manu. What does it mean?
I also don't know what it means. Every day is a nice day, so every day is nice Manu.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to carry on trying out this new format. I'm not going to announce topics. It's going to be a surprise as we get through it. I was just about to announce the topic, so I wasn't going to go very well. So, Matt, what do you have today?
Yes. So today I thought we would talk about Fortnite coming back to mobile through Xbox Cloud Streaming. So this was announced by Xbox and Tim Sweeney on Twitter. As you might know, Fortnite was previously removed from the App Store and Google Play Store because of the whole Epic Games versus Apple sort of disagreement, legal argument, what have you. And it hasn't really been available on mobile for a while, which I think has been noteworthy from a mobile shooter perspective. It's like a massive game, right? And the only way to play it on mobile has been through sort of niche services like the NVIDIA, I think it was, the GeForce Now streaming, maybe through like the Samsung store or something small like that. But otherwise, unavailable to mobile players. So I thought this was really interesting that they found a sort of sweetheart deal with Microsoft, perhaps. And I wonder, what is the arrangement? What kind of a take rate are they getting from Microsoft as compared to the 30% that they would have paid otherwise? Were they still on the App Store or the Google Play Store? Here's a quote that I think is interesting as well. We're starting with Fortnite, and we'll look to bring more free-to-play games people love in the future. At Xbox, we want to make gaming accessible to the 3 billion players around the world, yada, yada, yada. So hinting at potential additions on the free-to-play side as well. So I guess two things going on here. One is, what do you all think is happening? What was the arrangement between Epic and Microsoft? Do you think that others, like perhaps Amazon, were trying to get in on this deal as well? And then the second part, which we can discuss in a little bit, is like, where do you think this goes next? What other free-to-play games are coming to Xbox Cloud Streaming? Let's start with the Fortnite Microsoft deal first. What do y'all think?
Do you guys think Microsoft took advantage of that position? Lots of leverage over here, but
Totally. When I read this, I imagined two people are in a bar and they discuss, oh, I got rejected from being on Apple. I have to pay the 30%. And then the other person says, oh, me too. Why is this the world? And then they come together and, oh, we can bypass it by using cloud browser technology.
Do you think it could be more cynical than that? I sometimes think, well, to be honest, I sort of think there's a bit of being man-children here, in the sense that, fair play to Tim Sweeney. I just want to say he is a bit of a hero of mine. Obviously, anyone who makes Unreal, I mean, that's a game that I grew up with. Unbelievable engine, top talent, incredible person. But he really hates closed platforms, doesn't he? I mean, that's his thing. And really what this is, for me, is just like a giant middle finger to say, okay, Tim Cook, you think you can stop me, but I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I'm going to show you that there's still a way for me to do it. Because if you look at it from a sort of profitability standpoint, there's none. There's no business argument. If I went to any of you here, like you were my boss, and I said, hey, Maria, I've got a great way to get our game onto iOS. It's by going through Microsoft. You'd laugh at me. You'd be like, why not just go through the App Store so that everyone can play it, rather than this convoluted other way that you can do it? But so in some ways, it does make me laugh, but I don't know. It's just sort of like, I just have imagining like sort of billionaires throwing money at each other, having like money fights. And that's sort of what it is really. But that's just the cynical side of me. I mean, at the same time, it is kind of cool that you can do it. If people get to play the game, good for the players. But yeah, I mean, I can't help just think there's another way of doing it. But look, at the end of the day, it's the world's most popular game, or one of the most popular games. So, and a lot of people were unfairly blocked out again because billionaires were throwing money at one another. So, if you can play your favorite game, that's the best thing. But yeah, that's my stance on just the Fortnite deal, anyway.
I actually don't know if they're
deep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Sweeney's in too deep. There's no way back from this position, you know. even in the announcement, in the like the official announcement text, I guess like maybe Epic Games also wrote it, because in their list of devices available, you know, all the Apple devices were first in the list, and then they said, and also Windows PC. I mean, you know, talk about like, you know, just like taking home that middle finger. but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think that because they've made this decision to fight Apple and fight Google, like that decision is made, they've sort of painted themselves into a corner. So given that that's not an option, you know, it's either like no revenue from mobile, no one's playing on mobile, or they do something like this, or, you know, maybe they go with one of the other cloud streaming platforms, or they just, you know, rely on the smaller services that I mentioned earlier. But, you know, I think it's like a sort of a win-win for both parties here, right? Like Epic gets some revenue. They get to give the big middle finger to Apple and Google, and Microsoft gets a really big title on their cloud streaming platform. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense, but I also agree with your cynical point of view, and you'll like totally agree. I
mean, like it could, because Epic and Tim Sweeney specifically has also kind of cemented his, you know, impression as like this good Samaritan of the, of, you know, industry developers and such. It does kind of, what's the word? Dullen? Is that a word? Like you dull the edge off of something.
Okay.
But it kind of like dulls the edge of Microsoft's leverage, because this is, or it could, because, you know, whatever deal terms are also getting set up over here will probably, you know, play a pretty big role in future deal terms that Microsoft will want to be setting up with other, you know, or getting other big free-to-play games onto their streaming platform. So, sure, like Microsoft was in a strong position, but they also kind of need to set like a tone, you know, with this move going forward. But
I think, Matt, your second part on the point, I think, is the really interesting part.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you alluded to it, because whilst this might be just the middle finger, actually, to be fair, the back door that it potentially opens is super cool. I have to say that a few weeks ago, I think it was on this podcast with Maria, we were talking about the Game Pass and like Sony and, you know, them making some of the decisions. And some of us were saying, oh, it wouldn't surprise us if 10 years from now, the Microsoft Game Pass was available on a PlayStation. And if you think about it, does this not sort of mean that the Game Pass is available on iOS? Kind of, sort of, maybe, if you squint your eyes.
Yeah.
And then it's not just free-to-play games, but it could be any game. That's potentially what I could see happen. That's maybe a bit too speculative to say that.
I don't think it's too speculative. And no matter how much people in business portray as doing it for good Samaritan reasons, you're a business. You're doing this with a strategy in mind, and you're trying to lay the floor, the path for the future. We're seeing the metaverse. Everyone's trying to create a platform. And all in all, from the start in this discussion and, you know, quote unquote war with Apple of trying to not have to pay all of the royalties and have other ways to distribute the apps through the store, it's all for business reasons. No one's trying to do this out of the kindness of their heart to change the world.
Maria, I can tell you're a product manager if you didn't know that already. Like that entire statement. But you're 100% correct. 100% correct.
Well, you can wrap it up in the Good Samaritan bow.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
presenting it. But
Yeah.
one question I did have was... sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just saying that I was kind of also thinking about, what happened to Stadia. And if I remember correctly, Apple had like a pretty big backlash to what Stadia was doing, right? Like creating this like library of games and kind of distributing it also on Apple. Am I right about that?
I don't recall.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay.
Stadia.
I just remember something like that.
In time,
Yeah, maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but yeah, I was just wondering also, if Xbox is going to be like getting more and more of these games into their catalog, and it's now getting distributed through iOS and stuff. It's kind of basically it's a library of games that you have access to through an app, which skirts the guideline lines of Apple, and I wonder what will happen over there.
Yeah, I actually just searched the App Store and there's a Google Stadia app that you can download.
And were you the first person to download it after taking it down? Because that product was so poor. Anyway, that's another story for another time. But look, to be fair to Microsoft, the way that they're going, how will anyone not have a Game Pass? If you're a games fan and they have great games and you can run it on anything, and they've just bought Blizzard, Activision, King, et al. They are going to be the Netflix of games, in my opinion. That's a perfect way of doing it. This is just another way that they can kind of break it down. And yeah, I right now don't own a Game Pass. I don't own a Microsoft console at the moment. I have had it in the past. It was great, to be fair. Like, all the online worked. It was pretty good value. So I guess I'm just contemplating the fact that I can't see myself not having one in the sort of next X amount of time. So I think from their kind of product strategy on that particular thing of what they're doing, it's all really... It just makes a big difference to sort of like the Steve Ballmer era, doesn't it, with Microsoft? Whereas now you've got Satya Nadella, and it's just all coming together, I feel. So yeah, fair play. It looks good.
If I had to pick a game, please, Destiny 2, come back, come into the cloud.
But that's gone to Sony, hasn't it? So
yeah. I think they're still going to distribute on Xbox, at least according to the announcement. We'll see. But Matt, you're becoming a great host. You just dropped this little seed, and then you saw the conspiracy theories come about.
Oh yeah, I love conspiracy theory talk on the podcast. I'm actively encouraging it.
Anything else on this topic, or will we?
Well, if you have any bold predictions on which games are going to come next, we could do that. Which free-to-play games are coming to Xbox Cloud Streaming. I think it's an interesting intersection of macro trends, right? Because we're seeing more games are launching on multiple platforms at the same time. Like, there was recently the announcement that Diablo Immortal is going to be a PC and mobile game. The Star Trek mobile game did it too. I think Raid Shadow Legends has done it. So a bunch of games have done it. I don't know if there's any big predictions from you all on which title might come next. I can go first if you're not ready.
Go on then. Yeah, you're
ready.
I think Path of Exile. Would be
that would be cool.
Yeah. I know they've tried to do a mobile game, or they've talked about doing a mobile game, and this makes total sense. Just do it.
That is a bold prediction.
Can Rocket League be a guess? Or is it? I don't know if it's already there or not. But
no, there is a mobile version that they're working on, isn't it? But the original full fat version isn't. But would that be possible? Don't know.
Yeah. I'm sticking with my Destiny prediction because I love Destiny.
Are any of you guys good at Rocket League, by the way?
No.
I've just had the hardest time playing that game. It's insanely hard.
Yeah, that's why it's popular though. It's a fun game.
That actually makes a lot of sense though, because it's epic.
Yeah,
right? It makes a lot of sense.
Matt, are there any Halo games that are free to play? They're not, are they? Not even the strategy game is free to play, is it?
I think, well, I don't know about on cloud streaming, but the newest one, I think as long as you have Game Pass, it's free to play. So I guess not really free, but
Yeah.
like the multiplayer is free. The campaign costs money.
Yeah.
Yeah. The game I discovered I'm great at is Mobile Legends Bang Bang. Or maybe their onboarding is so good that it makes me feel powerful against bots. But no, I'm sure I'm playing against real players. And I'm amazing. Right?
Yeah, we're going to see Maria in one of those esports, capsules with the teams just competing pretty soon.
I could do it. No, I can't. Anil, what did you bring today?
Okay, so this one's maybe a bit controversial, but I find it quite interesting. I'll explain why. So the topic I brought was China's attempts to control the video games industry in China. And specifically, they are having some sort of system which is preventing people from tipping streamers and watching streams after 10 p.m. Now, that topic perhaps by itself is probably a bit too controversial for this Metacast, because I don't want to sort of get into a massive conversation about politics or state control and all that kind of stuff. So that's not really what the topic is about. Why I wanted to discuss it is that I think for us that kind of work in video games in general, there is like sort of elephant in the room that we are deliberately designing addictive experiences. And these addictive experiences, I would go as far as saying, aren't quite fully understood by the public at large. And they can have quite detrimental effects on people. And so I guess what I'm sort of saying here is, even though I obviously think that the way control is put on people is bad, is there maybe actually some merit to what they're doing by trying to look after people, by stopping them playing for so long, by stopping them playing for endless amount of hours? So that was my topic. They were kind of my thoughts that I wanted to move on. So I guess, yeah, I think everyone can agree that the state government controlling what you can and can't do at certain times is bad. So that's not just that. But the wider topic is more, should there be controls or preventative measures that are put in place for gamers in general, particularly younger audiences? And is it something that we as game makers should be more considerate of?
Well, the UK has the age-appropriate design code that I personally, working in the industry, hope will roll out just more globally and generally, and comes with all of these regulations about how you cannot do personalized promotions to players who are underage. They must have notifications turned off automatically, and they have to purposely go to the settings to turn them on, so you can't try to get them to accept by tapping pop-ups. Terms and conditions, privacy policy is all summarized, so it's more easy to understand. It has all of these data privacy, and it limits how much games can target players who are underage and try to protect them.
But conversely, Maria, I mean, you're in product. So if you told your boss that you'd worked on a game and you'd managed to make the day 3 retention 90%, you'd probably be promoted, because that would be a pretty phenomenal achievement. But the thing is that when you start
90%. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It depends what company
Definitely
you work
promoted.
for. Yeah, it depends who you're working for. I personally want to work for a company that has some morals, and it's not all about money.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. So in this imaginary situation, because something that's similar is, look how sort of addicted kids are to TikTok. Similar thing. They make a super addictive experience. Yeah. They know that it's addictive. And then it kind of takes it that way. So, you know, for example, in China, other things they did is they forced you to log out of games if you played it for too long, because people were playing, the MOBA over there, Rise of Kings for way too long. And
all the spiritual opium, as how they call it.
Yeah. And so the reason why I really want to raise this, I guess, is because in my personal experience, I have friends where I've seen this happen to. And the thing is I can see the argument for doing things like this. So COVID was obviously impacted everybody. And there were definitely people I knew who then just video gamed for sort of 12 hours a day. And then now that COVID restrictions have decreased, they're kind of still video gaming for 12 hours a day. And they didn't beforehand. And the thing is that I feel that because experiences are addictive, it's a bit like being an alcoholic. You know, the first step is realizing you have a problem. But do people even recognize that it's a problem? Like, I feel here with this news, it's sort of like the CCP sort of is recognizing that it is quite a big problem, that they are maybe losing productivity. And, you know, I've seen studies where they've seen that now, you know, rather than students being, really motivated to get the top grades, which is of course what they really want, they'd rather just be really good at Mobile Legends Bang Bang so they can beat Maria. So yeah, I don't want to say too much because it's my topic. You see, I'm quite passionate about it, but I'm just curious if you think of it, or am I just like being the old man that's yelling at a cloud, which is also possibly true.
I think that there is. No, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say they're going to need to play more than 10, 12 hours a day to keep up with Maria. I mean, that's just what it is. But to be more serious, and maybe this is my American bias, but like I think it's like a personal responsibility. Like there's two things we're talking about here, right? One is just like people controlling their own gaming habits, and the other is children and making decisions on their behalf. And like, I think my bias is to give parents the ultimate say, and like there are all sorts of parental controls that you can put in place on your mobile device or whatever gaming platform you're using. These are typically built in. So that's sort of where I tend to fall back to as a child who played a lot of games. But I understand your perspective, certainly. There is definitely a role for regulation, but I don't know. Like, I think that maybe the Chinese approach is a bit heavy-handed.
Well, 100% is heavy-handed, isn't it? But I mean, I have to say, I was one of those said children you're talking about, and I video gamed a lot, and I got told off quite a number of times. Now, luckily, I've got the fallback, maybe like all of you, when like, oh, it turns out those video games did pay off after all. But we're probably about the 1 in 1,000 people that can say that. But Manu, what's your stance on this topic?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add on to what Matt said. Like the two other entities are, of course, the developers designing games responsibly. I think at least where like free to play was 10 years back, which was really the wild west of game mechanics and addictive mechanics and such. We've really come a long way, and companies like Supercell obviously comes to mind. Kind of just setting setting the foundation for what is still like highly retentive game design, but also responsible game design, and
but mind you, are chests that unlock 4 hours after you claim the reward in keeping with what you've just said? Because I would say that they're not. And that's a mechanic that's known to bring people in and is done by the very company you've suggested. So, look, I'm not going to be too critical. I've used that exact design pattern in many games that I've worked in because I understand how powerful it is. But I would say that, like, and I guess going back to the point with kids is that, I agree, like, it should be on the adults, but so many times it's hard to police. Like, I personally was playing Grand Theft Auto, I think at the age of, 11 or something like that. Like, my mum just thought it was another game. She didn't know that I was running over Harry Krishnas and getting a multiplayer bonus for it. She had no idea. So,
isn't that the same with cable TV? Yeah, I was young. I was a child and watching these Viking movies at 1 o'clock in the morning that were very violent. It all comes down to parental responsibility in a way. And for example, Xbox has a lot of parental controls, and they're building a very in-depth product where as a parent you can control, can players add your child as a friend, who can contact them, how many hours can you play, what can you play, to try to give the tools to parents to control the experience, similarly to how tech devices like an iPhone or an iPad try to do. I do agree that I believe the industry will move on potentially more to a place where products have to have an option where you can turn off purchases, so that you can try to, when you have that needs to make a purchase, you can't because you turn it off in the settings, so you can moderate yourself a little bit more. But I don't know. Yeah, individual responsibility.
I just feel like as games just grow as an industry and also just grow their significance across the world's population, there eventually will be some role that regulation plays. But how heavy-handed that ends up being, that's the point of question, right? Like, I personally don't agree with, China's way of handling this. That's really like treating everyone like kids, that's really not the way to do it. But I think there would be like a middle path, maybe on the lines of what Maria said, and how the UK has this design code. I didn't know about that, but that's like really interesting. I know they have like policies around advertisements and such. But yeah, I mean, I think as gaming kind of grows its significance, regulation will end up playing some kind of a role, and yeah, there would be kind of like this middle ground, and even like to that example of like the chess mechanic, right? I mean, there's also like a population of people who I would argue like enjoy having those mechanics. There's like a whole generation that's grown up with free to play games now, as kind of like the first games they played, and they're kind of used to it. I catch myself also sometimes, playing a box product, and I'll be like, ah, man, I miss the timer over here. It's like too free flowing, There's like there's too much of availability of content instantly, And it's like a weird feeling, but sometimes I miss those mechanics too. So it's kind of like
do they enjoy those mechanics, or have they been trained to enjoy those mechanics? Because I quite like junk food, but it turns out if all you eat is junk food, you end up being quite obese and you end up being unhealthy. Now, for what it's worth, on the sliding scale of evils, I would put video games quite low. I think there are things that are much worse. I would, for example, think in Britain, online gambling, I think, is out of control. I see people going to football matches that don't even look at the match. They're just looking at their phone because they've got something riding on the game, and they don't realize that that's how far gone they are. I think TikTok is actually quite irresponsible in terms of how addictive it is. And I think it's coming more and more to light that Facebook know full well that Instagram is horrific to female teenagers' mental health, but they've done nothing about it. So listen, on the sliding scale of evils, in fact, it was funny because during COVID, they were like, be a hero, play Fortnite for 12 hours today, just don't go out, right? And that was like, an actual commercial that was being run, I think, in Germany and things like that. But like I say, that's just something I want to be aware of. And it's more of a discussion point rather than me being militant saying, well, this must be the way.
Yeah,
but I guess I'm saying that, because on the one hand, we are literally being paid and being advanced for making things addictive, and then on the other hand, we're saying, oh, but people need to have better control. But it's like as we get better at our jobs, we're getting better and better at making it more addictive. So we're actually destroying the work that they're trying to do with that.
I think it really depends the company that you work for. At Hutch, we have people in leadership asking these tough questions of should we pull it back a bit? Are we finding the right balance? Should we introduce these features to help people control how much they're spending? And so I think, it really depends who you're working with. And there's this book that's very read in the product community called Hooked. And after reading it, I felt bad because it was all teaching about how to design experiences that are meant to addict people to wanting more. So I think it also comes down to whoever's developing products and being a designer, you also have to be responsible and think about the consequences on others.
Yeah. Yeah, I also feel like, I wouldn't characterize it as, like we're getting paid to build addictive things. I mean, at the end of the day, every game designer or anyone in the games industry has the option to, not do that. And that's why all these different types of games also exist. There are box products, which, I mean, there are multiple companies that someone could join to like create those. There's the free-to-play revenue line. There's the definition of gaming is now expanding with, blockchain games. I mean, now you're putting a straight up financial incentive over there. Like, I mean, talk about addictive.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just an expansion of, the definition of a game, and the people making the games. In each of these lines, the people making the game should definitely be responsible about, how they wield that power while they're, in front of their, 3DX Max or their Excel sheet balancing, economies and stuff. But But yeah, I mean, the developers have a choice to build what they want. Players have a choice, or at least the ones who are not considered kids have a choice to play what they want. And then, yeah, eventually, yeah, like I said, I think regulation will end up playing some role in this space. But yeah, I mean, yeah, what China is doing, that's just a little bit over the top.
Yeah, Manu, you raised blockchain gaming, and that was what I was going to say. Is like, we mentioned earlier, what if you had a game that retained 90%? Well, like Axie Infinity's retention was pretty high, and that was like because it was a job and people were making money. And so, as far as I'm aware, there's no age restrictions on participating in play to earn games. And so that's maybe like something to think about for the near to medium term future. Is like, what does that mean for children? When they can just log on and make money playing video games? Like, there's good.
By the way, I work in blockchain games, so the massive hypocrisy of my entire statement is not lost on me. I just want to make that clear.
No, I mean, to be honest, like the same question that you brought up, Anil, or this perspective of, well, you guys are getting paid to or we guys are getting paid to build addictive experiences. How many bar conversations I've had with people who are not in the games industry who say the exact same thing to me. My God. And it's the same, I'm just like repeating the same thing. But I mean, even when I was designing games or mechanics back at Zynga, this was like a super key point for me as a product manager. Like how can you not, or basically a lot of Zynga PMs I felt were just very focused on revenue maximization, and then they would do anything to the mechanic to make sure like the daily revenue goals end up getting hit, but that I kind of like drew the line over there. I was like, okay, great, we have revenue goals and such, but it is fully my decision as kind of feature owner to figure out what is a good balance of design over here. And yeah, that does come down to personal choice, and that's why I felt like I'm not getting paid to design addictive experiences. I'm trying to like figure out how to create fun within the constraints of a business model instead. So but yeah,
are we ready to carry on? I feel we could talk about this for another half an hour.
This is like a big debate topic.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I'll very quickly summarize what I brought. It makes me extremely happy. So EVE Online, they presented their roadmap. They're having the EVE Fan Fest. I think it's an in-person event in Iceland. And so we've been seeing CCP investing in improving the new player journey. EVE Online has been here for nearly 20 years. They're planning on having it around for another decade. And they're doing a lot to uplift the technology, the experience, modernize it so that it has a chance to compete with modern MMORPGs and other massive worlds that are dynamic that players can engage with nowadays. And at EVE Fest, they announced also an integration with Microsoft Excel. I thought that was amazing because EVE Online has always been called a spreadsheet MMO. And so actually leaning into it and just saying, okay, we're going to make it easy for you. Here you go. We know you love this. We know that you need it because of the complexity of the game, and making that journey easy for players. As a product manager, that just made me so happy because I know that they're eliminating that pain point for their players to be successful. But the most exciting thing, though, is that what never kept me playing EVE Online is that there's barely a story. Like, the story is made by leaning into the politics and your faction and the wars and just being part of this emergent story that's created with players. But EVE Online is going to start bringing back narrative arcs. And according to what happens during these arcs with what players do and the consequences, they're then going to continue that story. So players, my understanding is that players will be able to influence, and there will be universe consequences with their decisions. So I don't know, if they decide to blow up a planet, well, the planet is going to blow up and then it won't be there anymore. That's really cool, because that's something that I hear a lot of Web3 games promising. And just seeing a game that's been around for 20 years, just be like, hey, we can do this too. Yeah, it's great. Really happy.
I don't think you'll hear any disagreement from any of us as product people. You know, I think we all support Microsoft Excel and spreadsheet integration into games.
Yeah.
It's, you know, fantastic. I was excited when I read this news. I think more games should do this. You know, I'll have an export to CSV function. Like, I love it. Let's do it.
What about Google Sheets? What about us inferior people that don't have Microsoft 365? Are we being left out?
What about Apple numbers?
Yeah.
I think you can open. I've definitely opened Excel spreadsheets on Google Sheets. It has some kind of magic behind it. Yeah, it's just I think it's so inspiring and refreshing and loving seeing a company continuing to invest in this amazing game that they've been building for 20 years. They want to carry on providing this experience for 30. Players are essentially creating the history of the game just by being a part of it and taking their actions. There's not much out there in the world that can compare to the position that EVE Online has in the gaming industry. And I can't wait to be 40 years old and hear them announce another 10 years.
It also comes to knowing your customer as well, doesn't it? Because what other product manager says, hey guys, guess what we're going to do this sprint? We're going to do Excel integration.
Yeah. It's the ultimate quality of life. CCV clearly has PMs and designers and teams thinking about how to make the experience better for their players.
It's amazing as well. That's how it should be. So yeah, as you say, 20 years. I mean, that's a phenomenal achievement that people still play it and keep supporting it and keep adding for it. Yeah, congratulations. And what a terrific example for the rest of us in the industry to try and aspire to.
Yeah, Blast Royale, 30 years.
I actually think a lot of blockchain games will be thinking about this. I mean, like looking at some of the streamers and whatnot, like, and how they kind of, you know, showcase like their playing experience. Excel is also a key portion of their video, you know, just to analyze the game and such. But yeah.
Imagine if this is like a, you know, growing segment of the games industry. It's just like Sheets and Excel, you know, partnerships. Like, you know, look at a game like this is really silly, but like PUBG Mobile has partnered with every brand out there. Like, there's got to be an Excel partnership coming soon, right? Like, you know, it's. I think it's like hilarious, but also makes so much sense.
And then Tim Sweeney refuses to let pages go into Fortnite, and he doesn't do it.
Yeah, no, of course not. Yeah, he's going Excel all the
way. Okay. Now that there's a partnership between Epic and Microsoft, can we please see the word paperclip as a character in Fortnite?
Oh my God!
They put Clippy in Halo.
Did he really?
Yeah. There's like I don't know what it is exactly. But there's like there's an integration of Clippy into Halo,
like as a character.
You know, I'd have to look it up. I forget what they did exactly.
Crazy.
I want to say it was like a cosmetic or something, but it's there. Insane. I saw a headline about it.
I love it. I want Clippy more. Moving on to a serious topic again after my burst of happiness. Manu, what's the serious topic?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's a serious topic, but I think it's also a good one for a debate. So yeah, there was this article kind of doing the rounds. It's called "Stop Blindly Comparing Web3 with Free to Play" from a Web2 dev in brackets, and I actually expected it to get a little bit more traction, you know, like one of those Medium articles that have, you know, 90, 100, 200 claps on it. But this one just had like 2. But I thought it was like a pretty thought-provoking piece. It's written by Joe Lee, who is the Director of Product Management and Strategic Advisory at Riot. He's been there for about 5 years. And it's primarily like a PM research type role on League of Legends and Valorant. But yeah, his key thesis, and I'm just going to like, you know, just kind of set the stage and just reading a little bit from the article. So his key thesis kind of goes like this. Web3 enthusiasts need to stop blindly comparing Web3 games to free-to-play games without actually understanding why free-to-play succeeded. While there are similar trends between free-to-play and Web3, it does not mean that Web3 games will follow the same trend and end up dominating the marketplace. The primary comparison points I see cited are both early free-to-play and Web3 games experienced resistance from the core gamer segment. I mean, how many times I've heard this? And the second one is both early free-to-play and Web3 games look like crap compared to existing incumbents. Also a line that I've heard quite often. So then, and yeah, the last paragraph, he continues, these two comparison points are the outputs of the equation and the wrong things to be focused on. Free-to-play games have strong underlying fundamentals that make it work from a game dev and player value perspective. So while similarities exist between the two, they are also inconsequential. So, I mean, yeah, pretty strong start to this article. And, I think for a lot of people reading it, and also, a lot of people building in the space, a lot of people are actually like standing on the shoulders of, what they've learned in free to play and trying to like apply some of those learnings in the Web3 space. And broadly, I would say I do like not agree with some of what he said in the article, which we can get to, but broadly, I do agree with what he is saying in general. And I found it a little bit important also for, readers of this article to keep in mind like how he starts off the article addressing Web3 enthusiasts, because that's where this rhetoric I feel has also originated from, because I mean, the first people kind of building these games were also like crypto native folks who were usually like mostly they've not like built a game before. And, that's, I feel like some of this rhetoric was also like a coping mechanism for them in the space while they're kind of like at the, bleeding edge of where the industry is kind of going. So, but on the flip side, I don't think like many game devs say this, like I've never heard Anil say something like that, and he's building in the space because he knows like which world he's coming from and which world he's building for now. So
no, but do you know what, Manu?
No? Okay.
I think it's a great article to kind of compare, because to be honest with you, I think that there's a lot of merit in this. Like, to me, what this really reminds me of is the start of mobile. So I personally, probably like a lot of people here, I was like a console dev. I actually worked on console games. So now there's a mobile platform. We think it's going to be big. What games are we going to make for it? And everyone's like, oh, I know how to make games. So let's just make our console game and put it on mobile. And then you think, hang on a minute, Resident Evil 4 doesn't work on mobile. Why? Resident Evil 4 is an amazing game. Oh, you mean people don't want to play a 16-hour game on mobile? And there was this kind of thinking. And then, then we started realizing that actually the games that people wanted to play were bite-sized experiences that lasted 5 minutes, that gave you a simple endorphin rush, and then were addictive. And you'd play the game for 2 hours over the course of a day, but in chunks of 3 to 5 minutes. And it required an entirely different set of comprehending it. And then I remember playing, for example, Clash of Clans, and I was like, this is what a hit free-to-play game looks like. This is someone that's taken an idea, RTS, and made it for mobile and made it amazing and added to something doing it. So to be honest with this article, I think it is really true that right now all we're seeing is people saying, let's take game X, put it on the blockchain, and it should work. And, it might work. There might not be anything against that. That's certainly like a safe option. But I think it is realistic to say that actually the winning formula, which will probably be seen in 3 to 4 years, probably will be something that we haven't even comprehended yet. Like for our team, we often think to ourselves, okay, we're making a fairly standardized game that's kind of safe. But can you think of a game idea that you could only make on the blockchain that would literally not be possible to do in any other ways? And like, we have some ideas for them. We're not too convinced how successful they would be, but we can, because maybe we're not that good at coming up with something really creative. But there's definitely things like that. And so that probably is true. And I think also furthermore to that, and this was also proven with mobile, is that, games industry is not cannibalistic often, right? The market is huge, right? Why could it not be, for example, that blockchain games can exist in their own massive space, but free-to-play games can exist alongside them, just like console games do, just like casual games do, just like MMOs do. And so perhaps it will be that, you just have games with JPEGs of monkeys battling other JPEGs of monkeys in some Yuga Labs Bored Ape metaverse type thing.
The Yugaverse.
Right? And that's a huge industry by itself. And then you have more traditional games that we have. So I think they're definitely right to say this. But for me, I think the takeaway more is that I definitely don't think I've seen a game where I look at it and I think, wow, that game could only be done on the blockchain. Maybe there's like one or two. There's like one right now that's not even a game. It's called Steppen, where it's actually moved to earn. So the more exercise you do, you can earn crypto. And it's like, even if that game is a Ponzi scheme,
Maria was earning a little bit from that.
Well, that's one of the few times where you could say it's a good Ponzi scheme, because if everyone in the world gets fit and then some people get rich off it, is that a bad thing? Maybe not. Maybe that's for me to say. Anyway, I don't want to take too much of it, but I think like
the mechanics are addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be bad for my health. And this is why I think free to play will always have a space for non-crypto games, because as soon as there's money involved, I'm stressed because there's money. I'm not that kind of person who can have money and then if it goes down, it's fine. Like with this whole thing that's happening with Luna, Terra and UTC, I would just be in a ball of stress and not being able to really cope with life, seeing all of my money going down the drain. So it's not for me. And I want to play a game where I'm not, my money isn't disappearing, I suppose, and at risk. I just want to have fun without that feeling, that burden.
That's like one of the other rhetorics, where there's just like this polar perspective on like free to play is going to prevail and blockchain will be nothing, or the other way around, like blockchain is going to eat up free to play. And I honestly feel like in one of those, Newzoo graphs about the market, or another graph that we end up doing with Bitcraft soon, there will be like this blockchain revenue line, that will just add up to the market. Because I mean, like back to the first topic where we were talking about like the definition of what a game is expanding. That would just like incentivize different people to be playing and engaging with different experiences and kind of creating the revenue line. I do agree. Something that Anil also said. I was trying to like figure out, okay, what is like he said, like we should not focus on the equation output, and I was wondering like what is kind of like the takeaway with this piece. And for me, I felt like the reason he's kind of like he advises not to focus on the equation outputs is because like while you're building like these Web3 games, if you over index on some of these rhetorics, then you kind of end up justifying a development roadmap that potentially doesn't like fully embrace the future or the potential of this technology. Like for example, if you over index on core gamers also used to hate early free to play games, then I mean that does not mean like it's okay to ignore core gamers when you're kind of building a Web3 game, right? You can also like build. There are also like free to play experiences that have core gamers kind of playing those games, and there will always be like a chunk of core gamers who will never like any kind of change ever, and and yeah, I mean, yeah, like games like Fortnite and Clash Royale, wouldn't be there or wouldn't be where they are today without that realization. But yeah, my overall point, just kind of TLDR is, or my takeaway from this was probably the reason he's kind of saying, not to over-index on these or not to focus on these equation outputs is because if we end up over-indexing on the rhetoric, then it hampers product development roadmaps in a way where you constrain yourself as a designer to not fully take advantage of the tech, the underlying tech, but yeah, like was that kind of like a similar takeaway for you guys from this piece, or?
Yeah. Oh, Matt, I already did my hash on Steppen, so if you want to go.
No, I agree. I agree with what you've all said. I think it's it's a spectrum of how ingrained the financial aspect of it will be into the game. There's pure play to earn, and there's probably some hybrid out there where like you can play and own. I've heard before where it's mainly about the game, but you have an opportunity to sort of grind your way up to ownership of game items or something like that. To Maria's point, like how how deeply intertwined the financial aspect is with the fun aspect has a massive impact on the type of players that you're going to attract. And so, I can understand the criticisms from this article. Like a lot of the early blockchain games they don't really distinguish a certain type of player. It's not like, if you think about games today, there's all sorts of segmentation and market research. Like we're making a game in this genre with this specific mechanic for this type of player. And blockchain games is just like, we're making a game with crypto attached to it. And like anyone come play and make some money. It's like, it's not really differentiated, I guess. We'll get there for sure. Like I know there's all sorts of games being built in different genres and different areas that will evolve the space, but it's just not there yet. And so I can understand the backlash and the criticism. It's just like, it's different, but there is a place for blockchain gaming, and it's not a zero-sum outcome. It's like it will exist alongside everything else.
Yeah, it will eventually go back to play. These play and earn, play to earn, play and own. It will go back to play, and everything's a play, and you have different kinds of play. It's
a new secret, Maria. You're not supposed to tell people about that. Yeah.
It'll eventually happen. It will just create. Social media was new for a while, and then it just became part of normal life, and no one even thinks about it anymore as a new thing. It's just expected, and eventually this will happen as well. Hopefully, I will never be on STEPN because then I'll run every day, and that's bad for me, and then I have to pay more health insurance. But yeah, it'll come full circle. And I think that's why I really enjoy this article. It didn't feel like a criticism piece. It felt just take a step back and think. Because if you focus too much on these rules and predispositions in your brain, it will limit your innovation. It will stifle your creativity. On the weekend, I was trying to ideate some Web3 game concepts, and I realized I had to just start from scratch and think about what can I do that's new type of play using blockchain. And
that's what that's like another thing I'm maybe a little bit worried about, and even like in our consulting engagements and such, I feel even myself kind of getting caught in this trap, which is just like spending so much time in the free-to-play space and knowing like best practices and like how to build for it. Like how can I force myself to keep all that aside when I'm thinking about this, And is there basically a new way to kind of think about, do we need to have like the 4-hour chess, in this or not, That's what I was gonna say. And yeah, like that's, basically there's a lot of like, so there's definitely a talent migration that started, right? Anil is at the forefront of that. And yeah, there will be like significant unlearning, I feel, also.
Well, can I just touch on that?
Yes, please. You should. You're in the trenches, actually. You should tell us like how is it?
No. I've just got a good anecdote on the unlearning thing, because something that I was told quite a lot when I was at Capcom was how that what tends to happen with gamers is they just when they come up with a game idea, their game idea is just another game that already exists but plus 10% because they just love their favorite game. So it's like, I want to make Street Fighter, but it's got like chairs in it or something like that, but it's something stupid. And they said that their best ideas often came from people who had sort of nothing to do with games. And two examples that I'll never forget, which turned out to be big hits for them. So one was Monster Hunter. And the reason why Monster Hunter came about is because this guy went on a trip to Loch Ness, and he went on this special expedition tour where it's called Hunt Nessie. And what this whole thing, it was like for a week, and you got dressed up in this gear and you went around Scotland, around the lake, and you were like trying to find Nessie. And of course, Nessie doesn't exist, spoilers. But he said, even though he never met Nessie, the thrill of like being in a team and you were going to encounter this incredible beast was like really cool feeling. And then obviously one of the game designers was like, wow, that's a lot better than my idea of just making Street Fighter 4, but putting it in a wrestling game. And so they made that game instead. And then another one was, someone had to do jury service in Japan, and they went to do jury service, and they saw these two amazing lawyers having this really heated exchange. And you can probably guess what game that led to. It was Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. And again, because that was actually one of the first games I worked on, and it's like, what possessed you guys to make a legal simulator? Like, who on earth came up with that idea? And the lead producer,
Papers, Please games.
Yeah. So all I would say, I just think unlearning is exactly right, and that is the point of the article, I think. So that's why I feel that anecdote is valid. It's not just me spieling my old man stories, that it's relevant. And like, that's a good exercise for all of us when approaching like a new technology. That's what I said to you. That's what we've tried to do as a team. And I think we're quite far away from it. But yeah, we're thinking in the future, like when we've got like the proven tech, well, what could you actually do with it that hasn't been done before? Because I'm sure there'll be some really innovative stuff. And, it's important not just to take your already proven paradigms and try to shoehorn them in. Like, again, look at product design in general. I mean, just this week, Apple announced that they retired the iPod, RIP, but the original iPod, do you remember the wheel? I mean, the wheel was amazing. I remember using it for the first time thinking, what is this? And then after about 6 hours, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, you can one-handed, you can go forward 10 seconds, back 10 seconds. And I just thought, whoever designed it, they were like, why do we just need to copy like the Sony Walkman design when you could do something different? And so look, I'd love to have that ability, to be honest with you, to be able to think about things in that way. I think it takes a certain type of personality or skill set. And I think people who can kind of merge that with this new technology will be successful.
Yes.
And that's how we think about it.
It's even more important now to hire young people that don't have these constraints into your team, because experience is great. However, experience blinds you in a way. You keep thinking, oh, I've done this before. I can do it again. It will work. And you have to do that exercise to try to remove the biases that you have of your experience. And so having that perfect mix of battle-worn plus someone just new, a graduate, someone's been in the industry for maybe a year or so, they'll think about things that you can't think of because your brain is a bit locked in a box. And, we see this at the crypto meetups and earlier Crypto Cabal. There's so many young people there, graduates that are interested in getting into it and thinking about games. So
I was going to say, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, if we were on a Twitch stream right now, I would subscribe to the Maria Twitch channel and I would donate 1,000 bits. Like, that statement. And I think it's not just true for blockchain games. I think it's true in games in general. Like, I personally noticed that as well coming up, is that sometimes as you get older, you do just become that cranky old person that knows what works and you keep to it. But, there's an entirely new generation. I mean, another one you might see, do you ever seen like kids, how they try and turn the channel on the TV by going up to the screen and swiping? And it's because they think, why would you use a remote control? That's like really cumbersome, when on the phone, they're taught that that's how you change it. And that's like another good example of like, we should be doing things in an entirely different way, but we still use this like archaic system for many things. So, I think if you're in your 20s right now and you're in gaming, you're going to probably have a really good time, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's definitely also like one point for, I mean, even like the crypto native teams building in the space get a lot of shade for not having games experience. But like to this whole discussion point, I mean, some of the most successful games right now are built by crypto native teams, and they are kind of forging the path of innovation in the space, setting up the first line of best practices, which will of course like evolve. But they bring absolutely fresh thought. And even in free to play, another interesting anecdote about accidental innovation, the longer free to play has existed. I was chatting with the CEO of Happy Studios at some point, when they when I did the Archero deconstruct with Eva, and basically asked him like how did they like come up with the core mechanic, because that was like something really, really new, something we didn't see. Basically the point of when you remove the thumb, the shooting is automatic. That's something that we haven't really seen. And he said, it was basically just an accidental innovation that happened. It wasn't like a fully engineered kind of a thing. All they knew was when they had their initial control system and there was a button for shoot and a button for move, it was too much of a headache and it didn't feel fun enough. And somehow the designer just said, let's kill the shoot button, and when you remove the thumb, he's shooting automatically. And that just took it to a whole new level. And and that was kind of like the heart of the game also in a way. But I mean, coming back to this whole discussion, definitely worth a read, this article. It's quite thought-provoking in many ways. And that also, we're we're running out of time, but I made like a list of some interesting statements he made. Where he was talking about like how Web3 games could like lean more into wagering and gambling as mechanics and such. Maybe gambling is like the negative way to say it, but on those lines, it does open up the design space to those possibilities, very interesting article. Would definitely recommend a read and a deep thought about it on a Sunday with a coffee.
That does sound quite lovely on this grey day. I'm in. Nice Manu, indeed. We're seeing the happy Manu. This is great. I love it. Okay,
that was great. It's some great stories from Anil too. I appreciated hearing those anecdotes, and like now I'm reminiscing about my old iPod. I still have it, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I bought the U2 special edition.
Oh, did you? That was like, oh shoot! I heard an anecdote about this recently. It was like the first, like I don't know, spyware or something, where they give you the iPod. It's preloaded with U2. You can't do anything about it.
Did you get the iWatch too, Maria?
Wow, of course you brought that up. I know it's Apple Watch, okay?
What a callback.
Apple Watch.
Had to do it. Gavin, do not edit this out.
I reheard the podcast. I was so embarrassed on my own. On that note,
there'll be many more episodes. You can take a pot shot at me later.
Don't worry with your NPCs, Manu. Yeah. We got them. We got them safe. If you want to join the discussion, join us on Naavik's Discord. And thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.